US President Donald Trump seems to be seriously intending to change geographical maps. The first step has already been taken. The Gulf of Mexico has been replaced by the American Gulf, and the two-headed Denali Mountain in Alaska has been returned to the name of the Republican President William McKinley, who was killed in 1901. Trump also proposed that Canada become the 51st state of America. But the ambitious plans of the American president do not end there. Mr. President proposed that Denmark cede Greenland to the US. Why does he need the icy island? Greenland is the largest island in the world, 80% covered in ice. In terms of area, this huge piece of land is equal to half of Europe. But on such a large territory, less than 60,000 people live. The population density in Greenland is the lowest on Earth. Geographically, the icy island belongs to North America, but in fact, it is an autonomous region of Denmark, which is 50 times larger than the state itself in Northern Europe. It is believed that Greenland was discovered by the Vikings. Then, from the Vikings, this territory passed to the Norwegians, who were, in fact, descendants of the Vikings. But in 1536, Denmark entered into a union with Norway, and since then, this territory of Greenland has been considered a territory belonging to the Danish royal court. Few people know that the possibility of annexing the huge island to the US was discussed in the White House as early as the middle of the 19th century. At the moment when the US was buying Alaska, a discussion arose within the US, which did not result in any specific proposals to Denmark. But nevertheless, since the island is also located in the northern hemisphere of the North American continent, it would be logical to buy this island. During World War II, the icy island gained strategic importance for the US. On April 9, 1940, the Nazis occupied Denmark in just 6 hours. Washington understood that now the Nazis could deploy their military bases right under their noses in Greenland. To preempt the Germans, American troops occupied the island themselves. After the war, control over it was returned to Denmark. But in 1946, US President Harry Truman proposed that the authorities of the European country sell the autonomous region. He offered Denmark $100 million. Well, by today's standards, this amount does not seem very large, but if we remember the dollar that existed then, it is now around $1.5 billion US. Denmark refused to sell Greenland, but in exchange for NATO membership, it allowed Americans to maintain military bases on the island. This was very important for Washington. Soon after World War II, the Cold War began. The shortest air route from the USSR to the US passed over Greenland. The placement of American radars on the island allowed the Pentagon to quickly track the launches of Soviet ballistic missiles. In 1951, Americans built the Thule Air Base on the coast of Greenland, which was an important US military base during the Cold War era. Currently, this airbase has transformed, in essence, into a US space base on the island. Today, the space base in northern Greenland is one of the key facilities of the American missile defense system, especially given the strained relations between the US and China. Donald Trump is undoubtedly guided by purely practical considerations. As a true businessman, he perfectly understands what opportunities control over the island opens up for the American economy. According to some estimates, approximately a quarter of the world's reserves of rare earth metals are concentrated there. These are neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, and other chemical elements that are extremely rare in concentrated form in the Earth's interior, but are in high demand in high-tech production. That is, in principle, it's a pretty sweet deal. It's clear that if research is conducted there, there might be even more. But nevertheless, these rare earth metals are necessary for, let's say, the space industry, military production, and what can give a strategic advantage in the economy and military sphere. Another potential benefit for the US from the annexation of Greenland is the development of new trade routes. Due to the active melting of glaciers, the duration of the shipping season in the Arctic is constantly increasing. Russia is the most active in using climate change for its purposes. The Northern Sea Route is actively used, especially under sanctions against Russia. Russia transports convoys of its ships carrying various goods, oil, gas, and Americans are very envious of this. To gain access to their own Northern Sea Route, they are now interested in acquiring Greenland, But most importantly, the annexation of Greenland will give the US an advantage in the struggle for natural resources on the Arctic shelf. According to scientists' estimates, a quarter of the world's unexplored oil and gas reserves are located beyond the Arctic Circle. The rights to extract minerals in the Arctic are shared by 5 countries: Russia, the United States, Canada, Norway, and Denmark. De jure, development can only be carried out within a 370-kilometer zone from one's own shores. Therefore, every piece of land with access to the Arctic Ocean is worth its weight in gold today. The next war, or the next global confrontation, will be over the Arctic. Consequently, Trump and the forces behind him see that owning this island strengthens the position of the United States of America. And in general, let's say, this strategic advantage belongs to those who will control this island. China, which dreams of gaining access to the Arctic, has long had its eye on Greenland. The US authorities are doing everything possible to prevent the economic expansion of such a strong competitor on the island. Once, Americans already prevented the rapprochement of the Danish autonomy with the PRC. In 2018, the Chinese approached the authorities of the Greenlandic autonomy with a proposal to finance and build a network of airports in Greenland. And by the way, it would not cost the Greenlandic government anything. Americans were very concerned about this and approached the Danish government to influence the Greenlanders and essentially build these same airports at their own expense, well, jointly with the Danes. Donald Trump made it clear that in the struggle for Greenland, he intends to use any means, including economic pressure. He promised that if Copenhagen refuses to sell the island, America will sharply raise tariffs on imports of Danish goods. The US president did not rule out the use of military force. In response, the Danish authorities announced an increase in the defense budget. Over the past 10 years, Denmark's total military budget, which covered, among other things, the needs of Greenland, amounted to $2 and $6 billion per year. However, now, for 2025, after all of Trump's statements, Denmark has allocated more than $2 billion solely for the defense of Greenland. The idea of joining the US was sharply rejected by Greenland's Prime Minister Møi Borup Egede. The politician wrote on social media, "We are not for sale and never will be." But at the same time, he hinted that Greenland has every chance of becoming independent soon, and his government and the Greenlanders as a whole will make every effort to become independent, including from Denmark. The Danish authorities say that the decision on the future of Greenland should be made by the island's residents. But in this case, the autonomy has every chance of becoming the 51st state of America without any compensation for Copenhagen. As a recent poll showed, more than half of Greenlanders support the idea of joining the US. What do you think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is very important to me. Don't forget to give me a like if you liked it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.